Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to our supplemental video. So this time we are now in the week 5 or lesson 5 and also the last week of your module for prelim. So yan. So ito na yung pinaka last na week para sa prelim ninyo. Okay? And today's topic we will be discussing about the control structures. So yan. And at the end of the lesson, the learners should be able to define what is control structure and discuss the three basic programming structure, distinguish linear structure from relational structure, and explain the difference between controlled loop and infinite loop. Okay, so but before we proceed to my formal discussion, let me just remind, especially for those students who are not yet submitted the requirements, to please submit your requirements before the deadline date. So as I told you that I am also uh, giving a points for those students who will submit the requirements earlier before the deadline. Okay? So yan. So sana huwag nating hayaan na matabunan tayo ng mga requirements para sa ganun ay hindi tayo mahirapan na mag-cope up. So ayaw ko lang na maulit yung nangyari last meeting na natabunan ng mga requirements. So ang nangyari is nahirapan na yung mga students na maghabol. So yun yung iniiwasan natin. Okay? So yan. And in listening or watching this supplemental video is please have with you your module so while you are listening or watching this supplemental video kasi your module or the printed module that you have is will serve as your guide, yeah, or basis dito sa may lesson discussion natin. And for those student na hindi pa na-add pala sa mga GC natin, please sabihan nyo ako para sa ganun ay may add ko kayo sa mga group chat natin. Okay? Kasi nga, importante na ma-add kayo sa mga group chat kasi doon ako nagdi-disseminate ng mga announcement or information. Okay? Regarding your module or regarding sa mga queries ninyo, yan, and mga announcement. Yan. And also, doon din ako nag-send ng mga link. O yan, link ng mga supplemental videos. So, those link is your access dun sa YouTube channel namin. Or yung YouTube channel namin is andun na lahat or andun lahat yung mga recorded or supplemental videos dito sa subject. Okay? And sana if you have time or pag wala kayong ginagawa is panoorin nyo yung mga supplemental video kasi it really helps you a lot to understand better the printed module that you have or the topic na meron dyan sa module ninyo. So pag may time kayo, wala kayong ginagawa, please do watch or listen to our supplemental video. Yan, lalo ngayon na mahirap yung binabasa mo lang. So mas maganda pag yung may halong explanation. Yan, kaya ginagawa namin itong supplemental video to supplement yung discussion na meron sa module. Yan, okay? And ulitin ko, we are now in the last week of your prelim, and also would like to remind you that the date of your examination or prelim examination will be on September 20 to 24. So yung policy natin na you should finish all the requirements for prelims before kayo mag-take ng prelim examinations niyo. So kailangan ma-clear muna. So kailangan ma-pass niyo muna lahat ng mga requirements ng prelim, yung 1 to 5, yung week 1 to 5 bago kayo makapag-take ng exams. Okay? So yan. So again, we will be today we will be discussing about the control structure. Okay, so almost of the flowchart created the purpose of solving a problem. So are made of three basic structure. So yung mga three basic structure natin na yon is you have the linear, yung relational or yung selection, and then you have your loop. Okay? So yan. So later on, i-discuss natin isa-isa kung anong mga ibig sabihin ng three structure or basic structures na ito. So yung to make the power of the flowchart really absolute. So itong tatlong structure na to had to be stitched together as one. Although yung linear structure natin can work alone a little mile longer. So the relational and loop structure are a little bit tied up and restricted. So for example, sana yung relational structure may evaluate the expression assigned to it. Pero its flow had to branch back immediately doon sa linear or to a linear construct to take the required target process regardless doon sa may outcome of the test. So so yung loop on the other hand is a lot interior with the two others kasi nga it cannot branch out to any point within the linear block without yung paggamit ng relational structure as springboard to jump backward or to hit forward. So pagka yung loop branch out of the relation construct, so the usual outcome is infinite loop and yung program is or the and the program during its execution normally hang up. Okay, so that is the reason kung bakit meron tayong three basic structures. So, dun sa first structure, which is the linear structure. So, itong linear structure kasi is nothing more than a showing of the sequential execution of processing statement as logically described doon sa my flowchart. So, itong linear is nagko-construct siya sometimes contains yung processes that do not require evaluation or hindi na niya kailangan ng mag-conduct or ma-evaluate or branching out of controls and therefore can stand independently without yung mga iba. So okay lang sa kanya. So pwede mo siyang gamitin or kaya niyang mag-stand alone without the others, di ba? But itong situation na to or itong type ng situation na to is not always so. So there will be times when it has to pick support from the other two structure just to give meaning doon sa required processing. Okay? So yan. So hindi naman lagi na kailangan maging independent itong linear structure na to. So sometimes is kailangan niya din ng tulong or kailangan niya din yung ibang two structures. Okay? Para yun mabigyan ng meaning doon sa required processing. So let us begin our formal flowcharting activity with the problem given dyan sa may illustration kung napapansin nyo. So isa siyang illustration or a simple flow of logic. So take note lang that your solution will depend on the way you appreciate or understand yung problem. So yung solution mo, it's up to you. Kung wala naman tayong standard na fina-follow na solution, so it's up to you kung paano mo naiintindihan or paano mo ba i-describe yung how do you call that one, the problem or understand the problem. Okay, so for our example number 1, so you will going to draw a flow chart to enter two numbers through the keyboards and then display sorry, wait lang. Ayan, so draw a flowchart to enter two numbers through the keyboard and then display their sum on the screen. So, ang mangyayari dyan, you will going to enter two numbers and kukunin niya yung sum ng two numbers na in-input or in-enter mo. Okay, so yung algorithm niya, so yan. So, let us take the steps to deal with these steps. Okay, so for the algorithm or steps is, first is you will going to define A as a container or variable for the first value. Okay, so yan. So makikita mo doon sa may flowchart natin. So you have there is start, then A is 0. So yan. So define niya yung 0 as the first, A as the first value. So another container is you have the B or yung variable is for the second value. Kasi nga, sabi niya dyan, you will going to enter two numbers or two numbers through the keyboard. So, ang mangyayari dyan, yung first number natin is you have A and yung second number natin you have B. Okay? So, yan. And next is define S as container or variable for the sum of the first and second number. Okay? So, yan. So, and then for number 4, get the value of A and B. So, kunin mo yung or input mo yung mag-i-input ka ng A and B or yung value ng A or B. So, for example, sana is, kunwari, for the value of A is 5 and for the value of B is if we have 2. So, yan. And then, compute the sum by adding the first A and the second number which is the B value. So, mangyayari dyan is S is equals to, as defined as your container, or sum of A plus B. So, kunwari, ang in-input natin is 5 and 7 or 5 and 2. So, kunin niya, so sum of A plus B. So, mangyayari dyan is 5 plus 2. So, i-display niya yung sum on the screen or yung sagot na mismo. Okay? So, yan. So, that is for our example number 1. Okay, so what we are required in the problem above or yung problem dyan is to create a flowchart which will accept yung dalawang numbers natin through the keyboard. And then, i-display niya yung sum of the first and the second value on the screen. Pero, just before we jump into writing or solution, so kailangan din natin i-observe yung initialization requirements. So among those is of providing our algorithm with what is must carry along the way to support yung processing truly. Okay, so a computer is very willing, ready to do what we say it to do. Okay, but for the machine to follow our instruction, we have to provide it with all that it needs outside or it keeps. So for instance, we can tell the computer to enter a number, but by itself, it cannot provide its own container kasi nga without us na nagsasabi na to create one where it can store the value we would hope to enter. So, we have to tell the computer to create and assign A, B, and S as yung container for the first, then second, and the third, and the third value. Okay, so we have to tell yung gaya ng sinabi ko na we have to tell dun sa computer to create and assign A, B, and S as container for the first, second, and third value. So, respectively. So, this container is programming are known as yung variables natin. Okay, so yung mga container na yun, yung A, B, and S natin, those are variables. Okay, so we shall discuss more variables as we progress mamaya. Hence, yun, the appreciate flowchart to present the steps in, illustrated dyan sa may figure natin. So, yung first step natin, discuss ko lang. So, yung first step natin is, this is the step that, na sinasabi ni computer na mag-create ng A and B as the, initialize it to 0. So, as you can see, di ba, 0 lahat. And then, next is, we tell the computer to get the value of 4 containers, A and B, from the keyboard. So, yun na yung i-input ni user. Mag-i-input si user ng 2 numbers or dalawang value. Then, we tell the machine to compute the sum of A and B and put it on S as sum, di ba? So, yan. So, this is to tell the machine to display on the screen. So, the sum taken from container S. Okay? So, yan. So, always take note lang, guys, na yung figure dyan is yung containers A, B, and S may be defined without the need to assigning their respective initial value, which is the 0. Pero, of course, yung effect is always bad. So, in the absence of the initialization value, so yung system is normally takes the initiative of assigning garbage to our container. So, therefore, during yung mathematical operations, you have numeric values will mix up with garbage data and errors usually occurs. So, yun, para ma-avoid itong epekto na ito or itong nangyayari na ito, we must always see to it that yung container or yung variables natin we are declaring are initialized with legitimate values. So, always bear in mind that the honored principle, yung garbage accepted, garbage outputted. Okay? So, yan. So, that is for our example number 2. Next is we have the linear recursive steps. So ito, as you can see dyan sa flowchart, is pinapakita niya dyan yung construct design para mag-perform siya ng single pass processing. Pero, if what if same class of processing need have to be done twice? Will the linear structure still be able to handle it? So, well, it can be done in still. So, let us consider yung figure natin dyan. Kung napapansin nyo. So, yung figure natin dyan is ini-execute niya yung two complete processes by repeating yung steps starting doon sa pag-input ng mga values for A and B up to doon sa pag-display ng kanilang sum. Yeah. And then next is so take note lang dito sa may figure natin is so take note lang guys na however that yung assignment of variables was not repeated. This is because yung variable cannot be defined more than once or one, okay? So with this, yung repetition of parts of dun sa previous processes through a linear sequence, okay? So yan. So it also helps achieve the requirements of bringing into two sets of data in a single execution, okay? So yan. So however, itong approach na ito is very seldom used and anyone does it must be discouraged kasi nga yung flowchart has the tendency of becoming uncontrolled or mahaba, pwedeng maging humaba or recursive. Okay, so that is for the linear recursive steps. Okay, so next is we have sorry. Okay, so next is we have the linear in relation to loop structure. So, yan. So, dun sa linear in relation to loop structure, dun sa previous example natin na as illustrated dun sa figure kanina. Ito. Yan. So, yan. So, pinapakita niya or how kung paano yung recurrence of certain steps help achieve the second round or input processing before it ends. Pero if there were hundreds of similar input steps or processing to be made, so it would be very impractical to keep on repeating similar steps in a linear construct. So hence the best way para magamit natin yung or the best way to use yung loop and then define the shot in which the jump will kick or to repeat the previous processing construct. So yung figure natin dyan, ini-illustrate niya, itong nakikita yung figure dyan, ini-illustrate niya kung paano yung loop or paano gamitin yung loop to jump dun sa beginning of the steps to re-execute it. So when you say re-execute is uulitin niyang i-execute yung process. So for example, so kunwari first complete process pass. So pwedeng pag after ka na nag-input, then na display na niya yung sum, pwede kasing press any key to continue, parang ganun. So pag in-enter mo, pwede siyang babalik ulit. So another naman na pwede kang mag-input ng value. Yan. So continuous lang siya. Okay? So yan. So kung napapansin niyo diyan sa figure natin, yan. So that instead of rewriting the last three steps similar dun sa figure natin kanina above dun second set of data entry, so the control can be redirected to the input instruction. So unfortunately, the loops construct, yan, yung nakikita mo dyan na figure, it suffers fatal detect as it perform the loop without let up. So this repetitive execution will certainly result in logic error. Ito na yung infinite loop na tinatawag natin. So this will cause yung sa system to para mag-hang up siya and then the end remedy is either to manually break the execution of the program or pwedeng i-reboot mo yung computer during the runtime or yung during yung niraran mo yung program or dinedebug mo yung program. Although, yung paggamit ng loop structure is very important to the overall flow of the logic within the flowchart. Yet, we cannot let it blend with linear construct alone. Okay? So that is for the linear in relation to loop structure. Okay, so next is we have the relation, tama ba? The relational structure. So yan. So, wait lang. So yan. Okay, so itong relational structure na to, yan, it is used to indicate conditional path and executed depending on the outcome of the test. So yung diamond symbol dyan na nakikita nyo is ginagamit ito to indicate yung conditional path. So a question which is in the form of logical comparison is placed dyan sa may loob niya or place a foresaid shape for evaluation. So yan, nakikita nyo. So ang laging laman nung diamond natin is either a question siya which is answerable by yes or no or go or hindi. Yan. Okay? So, yan. So, next is, so yung appropriate steps which is placed under pass, if any, are executed depending doon sa outcome of the test. So, which could lead to either yung sinabi ko na sa inyo kanina na true or false. So, kung napapansin nyo, yung next, doon sa may both side niya, meron yung statement 2 and statement 1 natin. So, yung statement 2 natin is no pass yun. So, yung statement 1 is you have the yes pass. Okay, so pag nag-yes siya, syempre, ko-continue yung program. Pero pag nag-no siya, pwede niyang ibalik. Tapos, magre-re-execute siya ulit. Okay? So, yan. So, more often than not, so yung program is always in a state of making a decision based doon sa given situation. So, yung relational structure model, which is shown dyan sa may figure natin, is in-illustrate niya an instance when a decision is used to determine which path to take depending doon sa result ng test. Okay, so it's nakadepende siya doon sa result ng test, di ba? So yan. So also regardless doon sa path taken by reason, so of the said test, the relational flow should merge doon sa may single trail before going to the next step in the linear construct. Okay, so yan. So actually is okay, so actually yung true or false statement is not presented to the machine for execution. So hindi mo makikita yung true or false doon ha pag nag-execute ka na ng program. Pero rather to validate whether a question would derive an answer of yes or no. So depende 'yun kung yes or no yung sagot mo doon. So pinapakita naman niya diyan sa figure natin diyan so nakikita nyo na it shows there how the question is tested or evaluated. So the outcome of the test is yes, then statement 2 is performed. But if the result is no, syempre yung statement 1 natin is taken instead. So however, the answer is a yes or the no. So yung the directional flow of each side should meet the 13.2 rejoinder flaws before leaving dun sa may relational construct. So pag yung rejoining of the flow is based on the principle that a relation structure should maintain. So pwede yung one entry, one exit directional trail. So a method well observed in constructed program approach. Okay? Yan. So that is for the relational structure. Next is we have the relational operators. So as previously mentioned kanina, yung the truth values of comparison or yung expression can be determined through the use of the 6 relational operators. So I know some of you is alam na kung anong ibig sabihin itong mga or alam na ninyo kung ano yung mga conditional operators na ginagamit. Okay? So, we have here the conditional operators. So, and of course, yung meaning ng mga operators. So, yung equal, so yan, alam naman ninyo yung equal. Then, you have the less than and the greater than. Then, you have yung not equal. So, parang padamdam siya na may equal. And then, less than or equal. Then, greater than or equal. Okay? So, yan. So again, yung purpose ng flowcharting discussion natin ngayon is we shall include yung dalawang operators natin, which is yung how do you call that one, yung greater than and less than. So kasi nga they represent a compound evaluation which might appear confusing for beginners. So anyway, you will hand the necessary necessity of using them in actual programming. Actually, maiintindihan nyo na yan pag once na nag-program na kayo or yan, or gumawa kayo ng isang program. So, yan. Okay, so we have an example here using yung mga operate. Yeah, tama ba? So, sorry. Bumalik tayo. Okay, so we have an example which will going to apply the yan. Okay, so for example number 2, so you will we will draw a flowchart to enter two numbers from the keyboard and then find the highest. So assuming there is only one with the highest value and display it on the screen. So when you say highest, yan. Okay, so this example is ina-apply natin yung mga conditional operators natin, which is the equal, less than, greater than, not equal, less than, or yung equal. So, yan. So, kanina, yung sa may example natin, so gagawa tayo ng flowchart, which is mag-enter tayo ng dalawang numbers and then kukunin natin yung pinaka-highest number or yung di-display niya doon is yung in-enter natin na highest number. Okay, so for the algorithm steps, so first is you will going to define A as a structure, a container for the first value, and define B as a container for the second value, and get the value of A and B. Then compare the inputted values of A and B. So if A is the highest, then display it. Otherwise, display B. Okay, so kukunin niya yung pang third, kukunin niya yung dalawang value na in-enter natin, and then dun sa number 4, so i-compare na niya yung dalawang value na in-enter natin, tapos kukunin niya yung kung sino yung pinaka-highest value at yun yung i-display niya. Okay? So yan. So gagamitin natin yung diamond na symbol natin. Okay? So tignan natin. Okay, so yung suggested solution is yun indicated in the flowchart below. So nakikita nyo naman dyan, di ba? So in-illustrate niya kung paano yung relational structure na nag-work. So first is you have the start, then A is equals to 0. So first number natin yun. And then B is equals to 0. So we have the input A and B, kunwari 5 and 2. Okay, so for the value of A is equals to 5. Example lang to ha. And for the value of B is equals to 2. And then, dun sa may diamond natin is, i-compare niya yung dalawa. Yeah, i-compare niya yung dalawang in-enter natin na value at kukunin niya yung kung sino mas highest na value. Is it this A or B? So, pag yes, pag kunwari si B is yung pinaka-highest, pag yes, then i-display niya si A. Pero pag no, syempre i-display niya si B. Kasi nga, pag no, syempre, automatically na-understood naman na yun na si B yung highest, di ba? And then, after that, and you have the merging point, and then stop. Okay? So, yung tawag natin dito sa may, merong diamond, dito sa may diamond, which is display BA and display A, is yan yung relational structure range natin. Okay? Since we are searching for the highest value between yung container A and B, so it is good if we initiate the use of yung greater than symbol natin. Okay? So, other logical operators such as yung equal, to or yung less than. So, sign may also be used para makapag-provide or to provide us a way on how to catch the highest value during yung test natin. So, at the same time, yung greater than sign is more appropriate than the others. So, now, kung papanoorin nyo or kung titignan nyo yung flow of the control, so as it passes the input statement, yung control is stepped in the decision symbol to compare yung dalawang value natin, which is yung A and B. So, pagka yung A is more than the highest, more than the value of B, then the yes pass is taken and also we display yung value ng A pag siya yung pinaka-highest. And if it's not, then of course no. Then no pass yung is taken. And we display the value of B kasi nga siya yung pinaka-highest. So kung hindi highest si A sana, syempre understood na yun na si B ang highest. So further test is necessary when it is found that the value of B is not higher than A because as clearly stated dyan sa given problem or example natin, we assume to no equality of the value during the data entry. So, either way that yung flow of the control should merge before leaving the relational structure to take the next steps. Okay? So, yan. Okay, so that is for the use of the conditional operators. Okay, so next slide is we have yan. Okay, so next example. So let's have another example para mas maintindihan ninyo. Okay, so for our next example, yan. Dito sa may next example natin is example number 3 is you will going to draw a flowchart to enter two numbers from the keyboard and then find the highest value and display it on the screen. Okay, so yan. So, first is, the first value is, so take note lang na yung example number 2 natin. So, we had made an assumption of there could only be one entry with the highest value. So, ngayon, we shall abandon that assumption and since we are no longer sure what value might be entered during the data entry or hindi natin alam kung hindi natin sure kung ano yung mga pwede lang gustong i-enter na number, so we shall adopt the following logical possibilities. So first is that the first value is greater than the second value and then that the first value is less than the second value or the first value is equal to second value. Okay, so you have the algorithm steps. So define A as a container for the first value and define B as a container for the second value. Then you will going to get the value of the A and B. Then compare niya yung value ng A and B. So if A is the highest, then display it A. Otherwise, pag compare again the value of A and B. So if yung B is yung pinaka-highest, of course, i-display niya si B. So otherwise, bypass any display. Okay? So yan. So, yan yung suggested solution. So, yan. Kikita nyo na, diba? So, I have the merging points and the nested relational construct. Okay, so next is we have so we have also the loop structure. Okay, so sa loop structure natin, yan. So, you have statement 1, 2, 3. So, mayroon tayong tatlong statement dyan. So, karamihan sa mga program would keep on doing a series or instruction over and over until a certain condition occur. So, hindi kasi natin maiwasan yung may mga dinadagdag na mga condition, dinadagdag na mga instruction or series or instruction, yan. So, itong action na to is performing yung repetitive task na which is ang tawag natin is loop. So yung loop kasi must have control and that is to terminate at certain point when a certain condition is met. So obviously yung loop natin and yung relational structures must complement each other as the later will serve as determining a factor whether to jump to the beginning or to the end of the processing range. So before passing it dun sa flow and then dun sa flow to the next steps, either in linear or selection construct. Okay? So, yung loop structure model natin, kung napapansin nyo yung figure natin dyan, that is an example of, of a loop range or loop structures. Okay? So, dyan sa example natin, so meron tayong dyan start, then statement 1, statement 2, then you have test, so true or false. So, gumamit siya ng true and false. Yan. So, yung figure natin, yung statement 1 and 2 natin are executed before the test is evaluated. So, while yung test yields a positive result dun sa steps, so the beginning steps, the steps beginning with statement 1 are re-executed. So, in the event that the test turned out to be false, so yung loop is terminated. So, yung statement 3 is taken before bringing the whole processing to a halt. Okay? Yan. So, we have also here the infinite loop. Tama ba? Yeah. So, here in the infinite loop naman, so yan. So, yung infinite loop natin, again, there is an infinite loop when executing, when execution of steps. So, it's repeatedly done without let up and without yung definite ending point. So, to illustrate this kind of endless procedural run, so let us reconsider our previous flowchart kanina, yung example natin, and tag it sa few, so which shows how an infinite loop exists doon sa my flowchart. So, paano nga ba nag-exist or paano nga pumapasok tong loop, infinite loop na ito or itong loop application in a linear construction. So, as you can see dyan sa my figure natin, medyo humaba na siya ng konti, di ba? So, same lang dun sa example number 1 natin. So, sasabihin ko lang sa inyo kung paano yung loop, infinite loop na yan. So, infinite loop. So, yan yung nakikita nyo dyan, yung input A, B, then S, A plus B, and display, that is infinite loop. Okay? So, yung flowchart natin dyan is yun, execute by first defining yung 3 different variables and then wait for a set of data to be entered through yung variable A natin tsaka B. So, after natin na-entered yung data, so, the sum of the A and B is computed and loaded to S. So, dadalhin niya kay S. Diba? So, yung sum is then displayed on the screen and then input for a new set of data is repeated. So, yan. Okay, so yung first kind of flowchart works according to the logic in which data should be processed except that is loop without stopping. So, at a glance, one will notice the appearance of an infinite loop kasi nga, yung terminal natin or yung start symbol natin is not paired with either terminal signs indicating returns of control or return of control or yung return natin or yung terminal of control natin which is yung stop. Okay? So, since nothing was described as an exit point to stop the loop, so the processing would be endless. So, ibig sabihin, kung napapansin dyan sa figure natin, hindi tayo gumamit na stop or yung termination of control. So, ibig sabihin yan is pwede pa rin mag-continue yung program. Okay? So, pwedeng ulit-ulitin yan. Okay? So, the processing would be endless. Wala siyang hangganan. And the remedy is either to break the program execution. So, kung gusto mong mag-stop is, yun, break mo na lang or stop mo na lang yung program. Okay? So, hindi siya automatically na mag-i-stop yung program or mag-i-end yung program. Okay? Or force the operating system to end the task at once. So, if nothing of said remedy works, then the final resource is to manually reboot the computer. So, kung hindi mo alam is, reboot mo na lang yung computer or restart mo yung computer. Okay? That is for the infinite loop. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Yan. Okay, so that is for the day. And if you have any question or point of clarification, please do not hesitate to ask me through my personal messenger or through sa GC natin. Okay? So, yan. So, for your last requirements for prelim, so, for activity number 1, in this activity, draw a flowchart that display the following result based from the given algorithm from problem 1 and 2. So, ang magiging basis nyo dyan is yung example number 1 and 2 natin. So, write our algorithm and draw a flowchart that will double an enter display. So, display the result. So get a number. So for the solution algorithm, get the number, double the entered number, and display result. Okay? So when you say double, so you will going to use the mathematical operator na multiplication. Next is give problem 2. So given three numbers A, B, and C. So write an algorithm and draw a flowchart to compute and print out the sum, the average, and the product of these values. So read in the values of A and B and C, then determine the sum of the three values, then compute the average by dividing the sum by 3. So if pag nag-enter na sana tayo ng 'di ba, you will going to enter a 3 value or a number is kukunin mo yung average niya. So yung result niya is the average niya. So kukunin mo na mo yung sum ng lahat ng mga tatlong numbers na in-enter mo, and then you will going to divide it by 3. So multiply the first value from the second value and then third value to determine the product of the three values, then print out the computed values. Okay? So yan. So that's it for today, and I hope you understand our topic, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Okay? So yan. So mag-iingat tayo palagi. Always wear your face mask when you go out. Keep your immune system strong. Maghugas kayo ng kamay, mag-sanitize kayo. Then yun. Okay? So thank you so much for listening, and I hope next meeting you will listen again to our supplemental videos, and this would be the last the module of prelim. So for your week 6, that would be your exam, and your exam will be on September 20 to 24. Take note that I will not allow you to take your exam unless is na-complete nyo na yung mga requirements ninyo. Okay? So thank you, and God bless us all.